Hi, welcome back to the Camtasia vs. ScreenFlow Smackdown Part 2. Round 3! Keyboard effects. First up, Camtasia. The Camtasia keystroke effect can be found in the Video FX section. Simply select the keystroke effect and drop it onto your clip. Immediately you'll see an anchor point for the keystroke, but you won't see a keystroke yet because there isn't a keystroke at that point in your demo. If we position the playhead to an indentation along the green line on the bottom, we'll actually see one of the real keystrokes, and we can position it to where we want. Now we can adjust the size, set the style. There's several styles that we can choose from. Outline, black. Let's go with the traditional. We can set the duration, we can set whether there's a background or not, we can set whether the effect shows before or after the key press, and we can actually display the name of the modified key on top. Again, grabbing the anchor point, we can move it exactly where we want, and we can play the effect to see how it looks. So every time in our demo where we're actually using a command key, the keystroke will appear on the screen. Next up, ScreenFlow. The ScreenFlow keyboard effects can be found under the Screen Recordings tab. Here we can actually see options to show all the keys in addition to the modified key presses. In ScreenFlow, the display of the keystrokes is actually a horizontal bar across the entire screen recording. We can control the height of this bar and the vertical positioning of this bar. We can also control the font of the display, the background color, the outline color, whether or not we have a border, how rounded the corners are, the duration, and a fade in and a fade out of the effect. Let's see how that looks. Now remember, in our example, not only did we type modified keys, we typed carriage returns, and we actually type in a new line of text. Now ScreenFlow has the ability to display every keystroke, not just the modified ones like Camtasia. And here we have the line of text we're typing, and we see that every keystroke we press can be displayed. Scorecard! ScreenFlow takes round 3. Round 4. Callouts. First up, Camtasia. Camtasia's callout effects can be found under the Video FX category. Windows Spotlight is an effect which allows us to highlight what Camtasia detects as the current window, and the rest of the screen can be darkened by adjusting the opacity of this effect. And the highlighted portion of the screen, we can actually zoom bigger to draw attention to it. And there's a blur control to also blur out the rest of the screen. Now, as you can see here, the current window is determined to be the mouse hover help, which may or may not be what you're looking for, but that's what Camtasia determines it to be. Another call-out effect is the mask. If we grab one and drop it onto our clip, we see that our entire screen area is masked out except for a shape. Now we can control how dark the masked out areas are with the opacity, and we can manipulate the shape's location and its scale. So we can actually warp the shape from a circle to an ellipse and position it to where we want the focus to be. We can adjust the blend to take the edge off. One of the cool things we can do with this effect is add an animation to it. We can do this by selecting Animations and dropping a custom animation onto our clip. Once we do that, we can see an animation arrow with a beginning animation point and an ending animation point. If we position our playhead after the end animation point, we can set the properties of the mask to where we want the animation to finish. Let's see how that looks. We're now animating the location of the mask from one area of the screen to another. Let's see if we could change this animation to animate some of the other properties. We'll move the playhead to the beginning of the animation, and let's change the scale of the mask. Let's also change its shape so that the whole screen is actually highlighted. Click play to run the animation, and we see that we're animating the location and the scale, but we couldn't animate the shape since it stayed a rectangle instead of animating into a oval. Another callout effect is the spotlight. Let's grab one and drop it onto our clip. The spotlight allows us to set a target area and a light source, and depending on how far apart they are, it casts as kind of a 3D lighting effect onto our screen. Like the mask, we can also add animation to it. Let's drop our custom animation down and set the end parameters. We can move the target, and we'll move the light source to the other side of the screen. We can also use the focus control to set how large the spotlight is. I'll move the playhead to the beginning of the animation and click play to see how it looks. Sweet.
Next up, ScreenFlow.
In ScreenFlow, we have a Callouts tab with an action button which inserts a callout into our clip. The opacity parameter allows us to control the darkness of the non-callout areas. And the blur control allows us to control the amount of blur in the callout area. And we can blur out the background. Since this is a mouse cursor callout, we can control the size of the callout area around the mouse cursor. We can zoom out the callout to draw the user's attention. And we can set build in and out durations to ease in the effect. The callout is represented by a rectangular box inside your video clip along the timeline. We can adjust its duration by adjusting the size of the box. So here's what the mouse callout looks like. To remove the callout, you simply select it and hit the backspace key. Another type of callout is the foreground window callout. It works pretty much like the mouse cursor window, except the focus is on the foreground window. The freehand callout area is the most useful one of all. Using a rectangular drawing tool, you can specify areas on the screen to be called out. We can then set the zoom, add a shadow and some feathering to give it dimension, and set the build-in duration and out duration to animate the zoom. Let's see how that looks. The callout area zooms in to get the user's attention and then zooms back out. If we select on the callout, we can re-enter edit mode and paint additional callout areas. Let's use the round brush this time. After we set its size, we can just go anywhere on the screen and paint the areas we wish to call out. And we can do as many as we want. Let's see how that looks. Very nice.
Scorecard. Round 4 goes to ScreenFlow.